Okay, so this is the first Rialto demo, and we'll just quickly go through some of the motivation for the project and then talk about where we are. So really the goal of this project is to try and get a better understanding of what is Stanford's research output. So what is the output of the university as a whole? And the idea is that we have a pretty good sense of who's here, and we're as a university producing research output, whether it's publications or data sets, projects, and other tangible sort of results of this relatively large research budget. But what we want to do is to categorically and comprehensively as possible track that research output. So we know who's here. We know where and the funding is coming from, and that's well tracked. But we don't really have a comprehensive view of what is resulting from that. And so that's really the goal of this project. And here are some of the reasons why it's important to know what you're producing. I mean, we really should have an understanding from a strategic perspective of what the university is producing, and it gives us a better sense of maybe where we should be going in the future. As well as being able to provide compliance reporting and trend analysis, and provide opportunities for networking and other collaborative activities. So there's this notion of Stanford's research core, which are sort of the core systems that will enable us to get this comprehensive view of the research output. SeRA tells us about funded projects. The profile system tells us about the people that are here and the publications that they're producing. And the Stanford Digital Repository catalogs the data sets that are being produced, as well as other digital assets. So the idea is that we take information that is currently sort of existing in these silos and build a network graph out of that information. So where and how do we track this research output? Well, that's the goal of this project. So Rialto takes advantage of this notion of the research information ecosystem and a research core, and is a technology project being developed at the Stanford University libraries. It's a database or a data store to hold this aggregated information. It'll be a web application to provide analytics and reporting on top of it. It'll use existing APIs to aggregate data from existing systems, and it will provide an API with linked data out to other consumers so that reports that aren't sort of built or envisioned as part of the web application can still be produced. So this is just another visualization of the various connectors that we envision being part of Rialto, and sort of an overall view of the landscape in this area. So this notion of research information management, research analytics, and so on encompasses sort of different levels of whether it's discovery of information or the managing of references or some social networking component, a public profile system, a system for managing funding opportunities, repositories. And then what we've done here is showed some examples of vendors like Clarivate and Elsevier and Digital Sciences, and solutions that they're trying to provide in this area. Now, we're most interested in sort of the open stack over there on the far right, which is non-proprietary and allows us to collaborate with other institutions to solve these or to serve these needs. So the current team, which has been spinning up, there are some members that are listed here who have been on this project for the last couple months in terms of developers, and there are others who are just joining very recently. I'm Peter Magnifico. I'm the product owner here in the library. Mike Jarlow is a developer and the tech lead. Christina Harlow is a tech advisor, and then we have a number of developers there. Tommy Ingolfsson, John Grebin, Aaron Collier, and Justin Coyne. And we have a DevOps, which is developer operations, Cam Chan, and then the management liaison, the technical director, is Vivian Wong. So, as I just stated, the time frame, the work started in early April 2018 with a slightly smaller team than what was listed on the previous slide, and the work is expected to continue throughout the summer and into the early fall. So, at a high level, the goal is to produce a combined data store containing information from the three primary data sources that were identified earlier. This is the people from the profile system, publications, which can be pulled from the Web of Science, which is where publications are currently fed into the profile system from, and funded projects from SeRA. We'll provide some querying capability on top of this data store. We anticipate it'll be a linked data store, an RDF, so we'll have a Sparkle query endpoint on top of that. We envision whether it'll be publicly available or not is a separate matter, but that's one of the goals is to at least give us internal querying capability on top of the data store, and then build a basic web UI. I should have said web UI in there, fulfilling a couple of specific predefined reports. And one of the things we've been doing over the last number of months and over a year now is collecting use cases. So even before the development team spun up, we've been talking to stakeholders across campus and collecting the use cases that will help guide the development of the project. So there's sort of a three-tier architecture, a data pipeline, which will connect to the various API sources and bring the data in, canonical data store for storing this information in an aggregated format, and the web application layer initially providing a UI, and also we envision having an API layer as well there. So this is sort of a drilling down a little bit more on those three tiers with the data pipeline, the data store, and the web app there, and showing the various data sources that we anticipate being pulled in through the data pipeline. We have some initial text selections for each of those areas shown here. And as you'll see on the next slide, a lot of the work that has gone on so far is sort of an evaluation of the data store that will be used. So we're looking at the data store that comes as a default as part of the Vivo stack, and Vivo is an open source application primarily used for profile systems, but the community is moving and trying to have that be a more generalized sort of data aggregation system. We're producing sort of both code and research artifacts. So for example, the investigation into the various triple stores that could underpin the data store. And what we're doing is putting this all in sort of a public locations for the benefit of the community and just for our own documentation purposes, but it's all public. And we're just using GitHub right now. So there's a link there to the GitHub repository, which has a wiki, and it also has all the issues that we've been writing up, and just some examples of the data ingest options and performance assessments we've been performing. Some of the initial work and early challenges we've faced, and there's some logistical stuff about trying to balance other work on other projects and administrative commitments, coming up to speed on new technologies, the Vivo Vitro stack that's Java-based, et cetera. And then some of the initial work we've been doing is, as I mentioned, is evaluating these alternative data stores, kind of engaging with the community and trying to understand what the direction of the Vivo stack is, and how we can sort of best plug into that community. Next up is to finalize the architecture and text selection, and then begin the ETL, which stands for extract, transfer, load, as we put data from these initial sources into the system. And that's it.